This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We are here for the first podcast of the new year to see what is unfolding. And you're taking us to one of the topics that has been left over from previous months, years, and so forth. You want to talk some more about the ego.
Yeah. And as I said, I didn't think it was like one of the rah-rah things that you would think about with starting the new year off in this just really positive, let's go thing. But the ego is so critically important to our, and I'm going to use the word success because I don't have a better word at the moment, but our success in doing almost everything. I mean, if you can look at it another way, it could squash everything. So, I think it's really worth giving it a thought at the beginning of the year so that, you give yourself a little bit of a chance, a heads up. Yeah. Because, and I always like to say, I don't think you can get rid of the ego. I think you can control it, much like a pet. An untrained pet in your house is just disaster. But if you train it right and keep your eye on it, it could work in your favor.
Yeah, I would suggest that maybe we can't control our ego so much as we can let our ego not control us.
Is that not two sides of the same coin?
I'll use the example of the mind chatter, the monkey chatter in my mind, the committee that's sometimes gets incessant and they're going and doing what they're doing. Controlling the ego, controlling that chatter is about getting them to stop talking and to talk about what I want them to talk about. And letting go of control of the ego is saying, you guys can be having this conversation, it has nothing to do with me, and I'm just going to stop paying attention. And it's not making the voices stop, it's making my active engagement and participation and belief that they're important stop. So I think it's very similar, but the feeling is different. And letting go of control of the ego, or letting go of the effects of the ego, feels like it's easier.
Okay, because I don't have to win. I'm still working with the idea of the pet, because the pet is still there, and every pet I've had, right? I'm the dog person.
Yes, you
they
are.
Still try to sneak up a little bit. And so it never stops. Now maybe again, it is the you that's in control. I was thinking about the mind chatter and what I've had to, little ways I've devised to work with that. And actually none of them are stopping the mind chatter. I don't know if I'm stopping it or not. It works. So I gotta think about what that might be. And to be more specific, because I don't want to be like mysterious, I'll have mind chatter will kick up at certain times, when I'm being most quiet or whatever. So what I do is I make sure I have an audiobook playing. So because I know I'm going to focus on that and the mind chatter subsides. But does that mean the mind chatter subsides or that I just refocused my attention? But for me, it works like a charm. So
Yeah.
I keep an extra phone in my pocket.
See, and the opposite is true of me. I can be listening to a talk or a lecture or an audiobook or something like that, and the mind chatter comes in, and that's all I'm paying attention to.
Really?
It does not get drowned out. It needs to be. I need to consciously focus on something else. So different strokes for different folks. So, and you found a way of dealing with it. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That is wonderful.
Now, it doesn't mean that I don't have mind chatter. You know, I got to make sure, like in the car, I always have CDs queued up.
Mm-hmm.
And things like that. So I haven't conquered this thing, right? But I have a way of working with it. And I know ahead of time, that little rascal, if I don't do something, if I let it off the leash.
Yep.
But actually, so yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
But we're all different, right? So you figure out a way to work with it.
That's true. You remember the old days when you had headphones that you had to plug in, and the radio or the computer or the phone is making the noise that's making, and you plug the headphones in and it switches over to the headphones and you're listening through the headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you unplug the headphones, then it's like back out in the room again. But if you leave the headphones plugged in and just take them out, then the conversation is going on. It doesn't have anything to do with you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say back in the good old days because now AirPods will know when you've taken them out.
Yes. And I got my new one.
You got yours? Yeah.
I got a pair that only works on the phone, and this one works. I said, I don't care if I had to get 10 pair. They're going to work. If it works for other people, they're going to work for me.
And it's working today, and yow. That's just fun. So the ego is important. And the ego gets a really bad rap, especially in spiritual circles, that our ego is controlling us and our ego wants all of these base things, and our ego is selfish and jealous and all those other things that our ego is. Our ego is our understanding and awareness of who we are. And that can be a good thing or not a good thing. So my favorite joke is that if you have a whole bunch of Buddhists who are completely detached from their ego and you try and take attendance, it'll take forever. Because you say, Carol Lawrence, and you're not attached to responding. You can let that go by. You can just be present and observe what's going on. And the person who's trying to take attendance is like, this is not helpful. I need you to have enough attachment to your ego that you'll be willing to claim being Carol, so that I can check your name off and continue. So there's some real benefit in understanding who we are and what we're bringing to the table, and also what limitations we've been dealing with. There's so much the growth work that we do is about understanding the path that we've been on and what makes us not just think what we think, but believe what we believe, because what happens next, what happens now is determined by our beliefs. So if there's something that we're believing that's come in as part of our experience, we need to be aware of that. Mm-hmm. And that awareness of self, that is an aspect of ego. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite meditations is just going to the quiet and say, who am I? And listen to what comes back. And then ask again, who am I? And see how the answer changes.
Yeah. I also think that I use it to examine my motives at times. And I used to think that I didn't have an ego, but that it was no problem. This is no problem at all.
This was back when you were a card-carrying control freak?
Well, actually, yeah, but here's the difference. I didn't think that I had a problem with it because I had not been challenged in a way that would disturb my ego.
Gotcha.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And yeah, so therefore I didn't think that I had it or that it was, it was just there. But I got a couple glimpses of it, enough to make me say, okay, it's not like you're a bad person, but you want to check this. Like this might be something you want to keep an eye on. And I was going to make a phone call a couple of weeks ago, and I stopped myself. I said, now, why are you calling this person? Why exactly are you calling this person? Oh, because they're going to call me, and we said we were going to talk, so I may as well just do it. And I could hear myself talking to myself, right? Really? Is that why you want to do it? Like, that person always calls you. They're going to call you. Why do you want to call this person now? Oh, because I'm excited to tell. Oh, you're excited. Okay. Well, you could tell this person, and this person. Why this person? Now, maybe I'm going overboard, maybe, but I'm really highly sensitive to it now because there's a certain way I don't want to be. Mm-hmm. So I got all these things like are going off, okay, now check it. Why are you doing it? Mm-hmm. Make sure you're doing it because, so maybe that's like over the top. I don't know, but that's how I'm going to be for a bit until I make sure that this little sucker is behaving.
Been doing a lot of work. I was going to say this year, but it was actually last year and it continues on the surrendering and letting go and becoming untethered. And one of the great questions to ask yourself that I've learned to ask myself is, what happens if I don't do this thing? Mm-hmm. Especially if it's this thing that obviously needs to be done and obviously I'm the only person in the world who's qualified to do it. Just say, all right, what happens if I don't do that? What happens if it remains undone? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's completely possible that the earth is going to spin right off of its axis and everything is going to go to hell. But probably not.
I used to use that a lot when I was in pastoring. I don't know that I was aware, as you are, that it's ego I was talking to. I don't know that I was aware of that. I just thought, you don't have to do everything. It's not going to collapse. There are other qualified people. But I didn't take it any further than that. I wasn't really smart as to exactly who I was. It was just a hunch that I was going on that, you don't have to be all that smart. And besides that, somebody else might be able to do it better. Is that cool with you? Yeah. Let the best thing happen. But then after I got aware of the ego, now I'm in this struggle with it. I'm always keeping my eye on it.
Right. To find out if it's your ego that's trying to prove that it still needs a job. No, what would you do without me?
Well, and the ego can get you into situations that you really don't belong in, right?
Yep.
Because I'm not going to leave the becauses are to everybody else, but I watch for things like that.
Oh yeah, listening for the because. As somebody rationalizes or justifies why they want something or why they're doing something, that's an endlessly entertaining game. Because sometimes it's really obvious and it's exactly what you think it was going to be, and it seems completely appropriate. And sometimes the reason people have for doing things is so whacked. It's like, hey, I support you in wanting that, but there's some issues in the way we're going to go about it or what we think it means.
Well, let me do this. Let me be transparent about something, right? I hadn't thought about this, but it popped up. This might help some people if they're listening, right? I am a very, very hands-on mom. Now, my kids are completely grown. Like, so grown, it's ridiculous. A really intact person would say, why are you talking to your kids like that? But they will call every single day between the phone or Facebook. I hear from all three every single day. And Mom, I can tell whether if they call me by my nickname. I could tell if they call me by my nickname, I know what they want. If they call me Mom, I know what they want. If they say Mommy, I know how, right? So I'm just really hands-on. And so there was a situation, and I am so accustomed to just slipping into the role that is necessary. And I was not welcome. And I was not understanding. So upset. Why? I've always, you're my baby, and and I'm just going through all this. And then it hit me. This is your ego here. Because like this one is your baby is 36. And wait a minute, it gets better because somebody might be here. Listen. I'm listening to the whole thing and I'm just doing what and I had all the right motives. Nobody questioned my motives. So what the heck is the problem here? The problem is the last time I really looked at the person as a person, they were like 24, 25. And when they left, I didn't change my view. They were still that baby, right? Even though they weren't a baby then. And I'm thinking, okay, the problem, now listen to this. You listening?
I am listening.
Okay. The problem that they had at 36 is a problem that I had at 24. So what I needed from my mom at 24 was not what they need at 36. I never made the connection. So I'm thinking, I'm pretty smart. Why couldn't I make the connection? I'm all upset because I can't. It was my ego that wanted me to be able to solve and fix. That's all it was.
And you were too close to it to be able to see what the issue actually was. Can't possibly be me. They must need something from me. I'm just doing the best that I can because here I end. It's like, wait a second. I'm acting the way my mom did. I'm doing what she was doing for me at an earlier time, and it's wonderful, maybe, but it's not necessary now.
Well, check this out. It's worse than you said, than that. It was what I wanted from my mom at the early 20s that she did not give me. So I am never going to do that to mine, but they don't need the same thing because, I prepared them in a different way. And what I'm standing here, if you could just imagine, I'm standing like, what did I do wrong? I'm doing everything right. What? And it was just that one little thing. The person is not 24. They can handle this. This is not like the end of the road to you at 24. It was at 36. It's not a
And
walk
they
in
may
the
or
park,
may not have needed it when they were 24.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But, look, and that was really, really hard. But I shared that story because I say it was my ego that was getting in the way. It was, I blamed it on, I'm trying to be the best mom. No, it was my ego was telling me that you need to do this.
Yeah. I think there's another part of that, which is the energy of attachment. Let's take a break and then talk about that as I dismiss my dog.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We are having such a fabulous conversation about ego, getting a grip on the ego, letting go of the grip that the ego has on us. And before the break, we were talking about when you're doing something and it's your ego that's telling you you should be doing it rather than it actually being something that needs to be done. And I mentioned the energy of attachment. And this is something that I learned very early on in parenting, that when mom says, I'm going to do this because my mom never did it for me, or I'm going to do this because my mom always did it for me. It's all about mom. Mom is still in charge, especially if you're saying, this is the way my mom treated me. I'm never going to treat my kid that way. I'm going to do the exact opposite. It's still the energy is all about mom. And what we get to do in our healthy ego is to say, what do I want to do? Mom gave me this data point, this guidepost, and I understand that that's not right for me. What is right for me? Instead of just doing what mom didn't do, or repeating what I think it was that mom did, where's my energy? What am I bringing to that? And that is a healthy self-awareness. And as you mentioned, ego gets a bad rap. So when we say ego, it's the self-awareness that's not helpful, but it's actually all of it. It's the self-awareness. Who am I? Who am I, and what am I bringing here?
Well, in that regard, I probably need therapy because I'm laughing, but because I was answering the question as you were going through it, and I said, well, I would have done the same thing because I think, what do I want to do, or who am I here? Because of the way I see myself. And I think also if I was a grown-up mom, I guess, or a mom to grown-up kids,
okay.
Well, I didn't even think about this until I got to the threshold of this situation. And it's not seeing your children as being grown and capable. That could be a level of immaturity as a parent. You're not seeing yourself as parent to adult children and all that business. So I understand the attachment. I do. I think I'm probably trying to take more of the responsibility on me as having to grow up and look at this in a different way, and not use it as an excuse, right? I'm mommy, and as an excuse. That's not. And maybe it would even be that I can't answer the phone when I really want to, and that's
because they might be calling. You better answer, because otherwise you're not talking to them every day.
Right. I'm not talking to them every day, but maybe I don't need to. So it's a whole big thing that I'm perfectly willing to take a look at, because it's better for them. It's better for me too. Because, I'm not sitting there with my feelings hurt. Like, I just was trying to help. It's like, okay, all right, take a vacation, go somewhere, Carol.
Yeah. And if you turn it from, I have to talk to my kids every day, or I've been talking to my kids every day, so I have to continue doing that, and you change it to, what do I want to do today? Do I want to be Carol who's talking to kids today, or do I want to let that go and let something else happen? And if the answer is what fills you up and feeds you and uplifts you is talking to your kids again, then by all means talk to your kids. And if not talking to your kids means you're incomplete as a human being and not effective or successful as a mommy all these years in, then yeah, that's something worth looking at. By the way, you are a good mommy. You can tell, because at 36, your kids are still talking to you.
Oh, we're best friends and all of that. I could not ask for a better relationship, really. But the other side of it is, I do need to, we could be fun and best friends. And, when we're laughing, when we're all together, you just think it was a crowd of people because we're all just cracking up, just, reminding each other of stuff. And it's like a big, little party. But I do need to be able to say, okay, well, you're this age now. And you're this age. And, this is because Michael went away to school, and it was kind of, I wanted to check to make sure he was okay. Do you have this? And I said, I'm not doing that. So, I think it's a case by case maybe, but recognizing that it does need to happen. And I don't know that it's automatic though. So I'm just saying that for every mom out there.
It applies for every dad out there as well.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to let go of the idea that we need to be there to run behind the two-wheeler when we take the training wheels off of it. Because if not for us, there's dire consequences are possible.
I'm going to say that that's not really a bad thing, really. I think it's a good thing to always be watching out, because in this world, you gotta have some. My mother used to say, and here's my mom thing, but she had some really good ideas. She said, always be kind to people because you don't know where they came from. Your voice might be the only kind voice they hear today. They may not have anybody that affirms them or makes them feel like a decent human being. At least be that person for the time that they come into your space. And I always have been that way. So, I don't think it's like all bad, right?
No. And you've done enough spiritual work on yourself, and you have enough awareness that there's stuff that you don't need to have happen. You don't have a glom on ego attachment that if not for me, my kids are complete failures.
No,
Yeah.
they're pretty sharp.
Yeah, they're doing what they're doing, which is great. And and being able, and it's different, being able to be present for your kids as they go through whatever it is they're going to go through, even if it's something that they could do on their own, but they never done it before. And it's the fact that you got a 30 or 40 year head start on them or whatever it is.
Right.
Means that you know something about it. I got a little perspective and, and a little bit of tread wear on my tires. So I can share the benefit of my experience. Experience, by the way, is that which lets you recognize a mistake as it's being made again.
And I so appreciate what you're saying. I'm trying to, and maybe everybody comes to this, whether you're a parent or not. You have to allow mistakes, because you can buffer and then the person is weak because you're always running interference. And I don't want that. I don't want that. So it's trying to figure out the balance. But then there's that egos coming in saying, well, this because you've experienced it. So you should say, sometimes you've experienced it and you don't need to say it. Yeah. It's just,
And it's that interesting perspective. And it could be, you're trying baking and you're going to mix those ingredients together. Yeah. Go find out. Go see how that works. And then the other one is, let me jump in here. Don't touch those two wires together. There's an appropriateness for how we're going to be engaging. And there's some things that it's perfectly okay to let go of, and others it's like, the price is too high. The price is too high. My experience and expertise in seeing what happens when those wires touch, it's too valuable to let go of.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with, I probably need to spend, a couple more hours on the growing up part, because if I just imagine that they thought something was happening and I didn't care about it, I would just pass out. Oh my God, they cannot possibly think that I don't care. I would move heaven and earth to help them. But, that's just like too much mom stuff. So I'm putting it in a different perspective and bringing the ego into like everything's coming under the light here. Cause you guys got to be strong, and there are, but anyway, that's kind of how I was looking at the ego thing. It's probably a lot more involved, but the ego, I think, does need to be examined, just to make sure that it's a well-balanced.
Yeah. We're not making an assumption that the way we've always done it is the best way to do it. Maybe there's something else. Let's take another break, and we will conclude with a prayer based on understanding who we truly are. It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at BeTheLight.com. That's B-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at BeTheLight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni. Did we have an outage just now?
An outage?
Yeah, did it stop? Because it just freeze to me.
My thing didn't stop. My thing is continuing to go along just fine. You have the internet that's driven by the hamster wheels over there near the beach. So
that's
who knows?
Okay.
Who knows what that's about? We've been having a wonderful conversation, though, about ego and letting go of the control that the ego has over us, and getting a grip or loosening the grip, whatever is going to serve us best. And as I promised, we're going to do a prayer about being present with our ego, understanding our ego, and embracing our ego. And it takes the form of a meditative prayer, which lets us deepen into a single question. So as is comfortable and safe to do so, go ahead and close your eyes. Allow yourself to become aware of that one divine power and presence, that one infinite love that unfolds and shares and reveals and expresses itself as every facet of creation. Everything is that one taking individual and personal form. That everything includes everyone, everywhere, everything, every place, every planet, every person, everything. And that includes me. And that includes each one within the sound of my voice. We are each individualized expressions of that one infinite power and presence. So knowing this, I know that divine essence abides within. That is the truth of what each of us is. We are that divine essence taking particular form. And wrapped up in all of that is our ego, our awareness of ourselves. There's the truth, what we are. Then there's our understanding of what we are. Then there's our expression of what we are. And then there are the ways that all of those interact. So knowing that that infinite intelligence, that divine presence abides within, I ask this question. And I invite each to ask this question in the first person, in the quiet of our own minds. Who am I? Who am I? And just open to whatever the response is. Allow the infinite to speak in that still small voice and inform us. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it's possible that the answer is going to come back with lots of different variations and flavors. A man or woman, a parent or a child, a teacher or a student, whatever the roles are that we've been playing, a brother or a sister. And ask that question again, who am I? And see, as we continue asking that question, what sort of insights or clarity comes up. Is there a tendency towards negative judgmental labels? Who am I? Is there an overinflated sense of grandeur? I am the greatest thing that's ever happened. Who am I? And let go of attachment to what the answer might be or how the answer might change. And be present to that infinite intelligence that abides within. Who am I? And we get to repeat this process anytime we want, anytime we find a quiet moment, or anytime we need a quiet moment. Who am I? And let everything else fall away. Listen to the mind chatter, see what it has to say, thank it, dismiss it, and then ask again, who am I? And see what insights come up. And join me in knowing that behind all of the answers, behind all of the new understandings and nuance, there is one infinite truth. The answer to who am I is a divine and perfect expression of God's love, a bright light shining in a way that only I can and only I am. That is the truth of who and what we are. And that truth, that bright light of love, gets to continue shining through every moment, through every experience. As we open to the awareness of who am I, that infinite power is responding and filling us with that awareness. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful for the shift and the transformation. I'm grateful for the change in perspective. I'm grateful for the insights that come about. And I'm grateful for everything that's no longer serving that gets left behind. And so with gratitude for all of this good, unfolding now and continuing to do so, I speak this word and I release it into that same creative law that creates everything. And I know it now is creating this. And so I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.